It's me, Caitlin, an ordinary 16-year-old girl living in a small town in America. In our small town, everyone knew each other, and everyone seemed to have a story. Many of my friends dreamed of careers or traveling, but for me, my biggest dream was to find my other half and get married. It may have been unusual for a girl my age, but I was always confident in my decision. I often dreamed of how beautiful it would be to wear a white dress, walk down the aisle in church and hear the wedding march, family dinners and evenings spent with the person I loved. I have a stroppy personality. It is very difficult for me to live with my parents because they cannot stand my hard character and disobedience. I had my first boyfriend when I was 14, and then I finally felt mature beyond my years. I always knew that when I graduated high school, I wouldn't go to college or work. I would just find a husband to provide for me. My mother laughed at my future plans for life. She said that it was all a fairy tale and that life was very different. But of course, I didn't believe her. I was persistent and wasn't going to change my plans. When I first saw Michael, he was working at a local factory. I spotted him as I walked past the factory entrance one day with my friends. His determined look and smile caught my attention. He looked older than his years, but that only added to his charm. I decided I couldn't pass up the chance to meet him. A few days later, I finally worked up the courage and approached him on my lunch break. My hands were shaking, but I told myself that I had to act if I wanted my dream to come true. "Hi, I'm Caitlin. You look like a familiar face here. Maybe we can get to know each other better?" Michael smiled and held out his hand.
Nice to meet you, Caitlin. I'm Michael. I'm glad you came over. Yeah, I've been working at this plant for a few years now. Can we talk after work if you don't mind?
Michael was 6 years older than me, which actually gave me some doubts. Michael was a mature and confident man, but I soon realized that Michael was a very good option for an adult relationship. He is more experienced, earns more money, and most likely wants to have a family and children soon. It was the right option for me at that time. It was very nice to hear his agreement. We exchanged phone numbers, and I couldn't wait to hear his voice. In the evening, we met at a cozy cafe. Michael was a tall and cheerful young man. He had deep brown eyes that could capture anyone's attention. His black hair was slightly wavy and always neatly styled. But appearance was not his most notable trait. Michael's character was weak, and he often tended to avoid conflict and smooth over disagreements. He was a peaceful and kind man, always ready to help others. Michael was a quiet observer who preferred to listen rather than speak. He was a patient and caring partner. Was an energetic and determined girl who was always striving to achieve her goals. Caitlin was not afraid to speak her mind and take the lead. She was confident and didn't shy away from expressing her feelings and desires. The conversation between us flowed naturally and casually. Though we were different, it brought us closer together. I learned that Michael was a kind man who had worked in a factory to ensure a decent life for himself and to save for his dreams. His self-sufficiency impressed me. He dressed well. He had his own style, which appealed to me. I noticed right away that Michael was a very modest and shy guy, and I liked that. Since I'm a more characterful girl, it would be easier for me to control and manipulate him. Soon our meetings became regular. We spent time together, walking around our small town, discussing our dreams and plans for the future. And finally, one day he asked me to be his girlfriend. I couldn't believe my luck. A feeling of happiness and excitement overwhelmed me. I gladly accepted his proposal and said yes to this wonderful adventure that the two of us were beginning. I had a great time with Michael, since I had never seen my own father, and I hardly ever talked to my stepfather. Being surrounded by a grown man made me feel loved and needed. I also liked feeling that I was so much cooler and better than the other girls who only thought about studying and going to school. I was better and smarter than they were. I was surrounded by talk of high school boys, sweet flirtations, and non-serious relationships. At the time I was dating Michael, it all seemed so insignificant and inferior. I bragged about my adult connection, sure it was something bigger and more meaningful. I thought my girlfriends were immature and unable to understand our relationship. They were still caught up in their schoolwork, dreaming of parties and fun, while I was already making plans for my future with Michael. I thought my friends couldn't really understand what it meant to be in an adult relationship. Living with my parents and studying had never been my thing. I always felt like my place wasn't here, in a small town with limited opportunities. Studying was boring and monotonous for me, and I often felt disadvantaged and unfree. I wanted more. I wanted to start my life exploring the world beyond academic subjects and parental rules. I dreamed of an independent life, my own place, where I could do what I wanted without constant restrictions and admonitions. I wanted to make my own decisions and not depend on other people's opinions. Life with my parents seemed too confined and controlled. I longed for freedom and independence, but at the same time, I never understood how people could go to work every day. They spend half their lives at work, and that was definitely not the case for me. So I had to figure out a way to get away from my parents to Michael. When I found out that Michael still had his grandfather's apartment, my heart ached at the possibilities in front of me. It was a chance to start a new chapter in my life. I had already pictured in my head how we were living together with Michael. He was making me breakfast, giving me flowers, presents. We were watching shows together. I also didn't know how to tell him that I wasn't going to work. But it didn't matter, because I could definitely talk him into living my life the way I wanted him to. He always went along with me. I could ask him to buy me an expensive thing, and he would buy it, even though he didn't want to at first. I feel in control and mastery of the situation, and I'm not bad at it. The moment I realized I couldn't just move in and live with Michael was a disappointment. I was still a minor and hadn't graduated from high school. My parents, especially my mother, had always put education and traditional values first. I knew they couldn't accept my romantic involvement with Michael, especially given our age difference. They stubbornly insisted that I should finish high school, get a college degree, and only then think about a serious relationship. But I couldn't wait that long. My love for Michael made me want to live by his side, to be there for him every day. I couldn't imagine life without him. One day, when things became unbearable, I made the decision to run away from home. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to sacrifice everything to be with Michael. I decided to read women's forums, and I found an article saying that in order for a man to be ready for a serious relationship and take you as his wife, you need to get pregnant from him. I didn't really want to have a baby so early, because babies aren't easy either, but then I would have solved the issue with my parents, my studies, and Michael. Michael would marry me. My parents would leave me alone and let me live with Michael, and I would get out of school. Oh, and also I won't have to work. I will tell Michael that I have a hard time and work at the same time, and he will of course agree. This idea was a no-brainer for me. I knew my parents would be disappointed and upset by what I was doing, but I didn't care. My mom was constantly making me study and help around the house, and when I moved in with Michael, I could live the life I wanted without any nagging. As Michael and I began to seriously discuss the future, it became clear that his feelings and readiness for a serious relationship did not match my expectations. He admitted that he was not ready for marriage and fatherhood at this time. It was hard for me to accept this truth. I was disappointed and frustrated because I had assumed that Michael shared my dreams and desires. Michael explained that he wanted to develop professionally, build his career, and gain financial stability before taking on the responsibility of starting a family. I just decided that he was afraid to enter into an adult relationship, and I just needed to help him. When I got pregnant, He would think better and faster about starting a family and taking me as his wife. I purposely pierced protection to get pregnant, and it really worked. After a month, I didn't have those days, and I was insanely happy. I took a pregnancy test, and it was positive. It was a start. Now Michael is definitely not going anywhere and proposing to me. Michael, I have something I want to talk to you about. I've been feeling weird lately, and I took a pregnancy test. It came back positive.
Positive, you mean? We're expecting a baby?
Yes, Michael. It looks like I'm pregnant. It happened unexpectedly, and I don't know how either of us should react to it. Now we definitely have to live together.
This is really unexpected news. I don't know what to say. We both know that I wasn't ready for parenthood, and I didn't want our connection to be based on those circumstances.
I understand, Michael, but it's for the best. Now, we can live together and raise our baby.
What baby? Caitlin, are you out of your mind? How can we move in together? With what money?
You have an apartment. You're working. We'll be fine. I'll be a good mom. You're just not ready for this news, and I get it, but there's no going back. There's already a baby, and you have to do something about it.
I need to think it through.
I was okay with Michael's reaction. He was just a little freaked out by this quick turn of events, but actually I was really excited about the fact that my life was about to change dramatically. I decided not to wait and tell my parents right away. Talking to my parents always made me anxious and unsure. I knew it would be hard for them to accept the news of my pregnancy, especially given the age difference between Michael and me. However, I decided to be honest and try to explain my feelings and decisions. Also, I hadn't yet introduced Michael to my parents, and that made me doubly scared. Mom, I have something very important I want to talk to you about. I'm pregnant.
Pregnant? Caitlin, how could this happen? You're too young to make such big decisions.
We expected more from you, Caitlin. You should have concentrated on your education and your future.
I thought you'd support me. I'm going to move in with Michael soon and live with him. We'll get married and we'll be fine.
But Caitlin, you're too young to be a mom. You have to think about your future, your career. And who is Michael anyway? Where is he from? How old is he?
I'll introduce you to him soon, and you'll find out.
That's not normal. You're only 16 and your head is full of boys. You're going to be a mom, too.
You're not my father, and it's not up to you to decide what's normal. I might want to be a mom. I stood in front of Michael, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. Getting to know my parents was an important step in our relationship, but Michael wasn't so sure. But I was already pregnant, and there was no going back. He just had to introduce himself to his parents. So after a lot of talking, he finally decided to come and visit them. Michael, please, let's go together to my parents' house. They need to know who I'm going to live with and who my baby is with.
Caitlin, I'm not sure I'm ready for that. You and I know how they're going to react to me and the fact that I made you a baby.
I saw the indecision and fear of rejection and judgment in his eyes, but I also knew that my heart was telling me it was the right thing to do. He should have realized by now the gravity of the situation. Michael looked at me with mixed feelings, but when he saw my determination, he gave in.
Okay, Caitlin, I agree. Let's go and meet your parents.
My heart raced with joy. Michael had made this move for me, and I was ready to accept any reaction from my parents. We went to my parents' house together, and I was grateful that Michael had taken this step. The first step toward adulthood had been taken. He would have no way out. My mom would make Michael take full responsibility for our child. When it was time to introduce Michael to his parents, I was nervous. I knew that their reaction to his age might be negative, but I also hoped for their understanding and support. I was afraid that they would put a lot of pressure on Michael and he would just run away. Michael and I came to visit my parents in their comfortable home. They were excited to meet Michael and greeted him with smiles.
Caitlin, he seems a few years older than you. Is this the Michael you were telling us about?
Yes, Mom, this is Michael. We love each other and have decided to be together.
But, Caitlin, he's so much older than you. Do you realize you could get in trouble for that? You're a minor and he's so much older than you.
I understand your concerns, but I really care about Caitlin and want to make her happy.
My parents exchanged glances, and I could see that they were still hesitant. However, they had love and concern for my well-being in their hearts.
We want you to be happy, Caitlin, but be prepared for difficulties. We will support you, but you must be strong and take care of each other.
Michael, I hope you have taken responsibility for our girl. We wish you happiness and well-being, but don't disappoint us.
For the rest of the evening, the whole family discussed the next steps for me and Michael. I could sense from the look on Michael's face that something was wrong. He sat sullen and silent. He hardly said a word. Upon arriving at his apartment, we began a conversation. Michael suggested that I terminate the pregnancy, an idea that made me furious and bitter. I couldn't believe that he would even consider it. How could you suggest that I terminate a pregnancy? This is our child, Michael. I'm not going to give it up just because it doesn't fit your plans.
Caitlin, please understand me. I wasn't ready for this, and I don't want to start a family. What did you expect me to do? I told you right off the bat I wasn't ready for this.
I understand that this is difficult for both of us, but it's more than just a decision for me. It's our baby, and I want to give him a chance at life and a loving family, and you're going to have to take responsibility.
I don't want this baby. It's all your own fault. And why all this, meeting your parents? Why did you say we were going to live together?
I thought you loved me. I just wanted to be with you. I wanted to start a family with you.
I understand how you feel, but I don't know if I can be a good father at such an early age.
Michael, I understand your doubts, but I can't change my mind. I want to give this child a chance at life and start a family, and you have to marry me and live with me, whether you want to or not. Our conversations were tense, and the difference in our perspectives on the future became apparent. To me, this plan was so simple and quick, but it didn't turn out the way I'd hoped. Not only did Michael not want to marry me, he didn't want to live with me and raise our future child. I decided to pressure him to rush the wedding. As time passed, my pregnancy continued to progress. I pressured Michael more and more about the wedding, hoping that he would change his attitude and agree to the marriage. But he remained unsure and insisted that he wasn't ready for such a big step. I didn't like Michael's behavior, so I decided to threaten him with his parents. But that didn't work either. I didn't know what to do anymore. I was 16 and pregnant, and the father of my unborn child didn't want him. A couple of days later, while my emotions were still running high from the wedding talk, Michael came up to me with a serious look on his face. He informed me that he was going abroad to work. He gave me a token amount of money and told me to decide for myself what to do with the baby. He wasn't going to raise him and bring him up. He warned me about that, but I didn't listen. That's how my beautiful plan ended. Michael ran away, and I'm 5 months pregnant. I couldn't terminate the pregnancy, so I was left alone with him. Years later, I still had to graduate high school and go to college. With my daughter Kim, my mother and stepfather helped me. Over the years, I quickly grew up and realized how stupid I had been, and my mom was right after all. Michael was no longer in my life with my daughter.